Greetings, Mason Storm here. On today's episode, we're going to look at making ourselves some chili. This is just going to be standard issue chili made on the stove top, not in the crock pot or the pressure cooker or anything crazy like that. Just going to start out with the basics of basics. So here we go. We'll get out our cutting board quick and then proceed to chop up our onion. You want your onion nice and small. A lot of people say onion is filler, but I think it really gives character and depth to the chili. That's why I'm a pretty big fan of it. This is a rather large onion here too. Spanish by nature. But it works great, and I'm a very big fan of the Spanish onion. Unless, of course, the label at the grocery store is wrong and this is some other form of onion. Either way, once we get this all chopped up into nice small pieces, we can move on to the rest of our ingredients. And for the rest of our ingredients, we have our red beans, our black beans, our crushed tomato, our diced tomato, and I have about 2 pounds of beef here, and of course my onion. We're going to begin our process with a nice big pot. That way everything can fit inside. Going to go for the medium heat, and then we're going to add a little bit of butter to the pan. Now our first real step is to cook down our onions and cook our brown beef. So in order to do that, we're just going to let the pan heat up, add our onions. We're going to cook them for 5-10 minutes just to get a little bit of color on them. And once they start looking like they're doing something exciting, we can add in our ground beef. Of course, if you want, you can also caramelize your onions, then add the ground beef, or some sort of combination of the two where you end up with cooked ground beef and caramelized onions. I know, a little bit crazy, a little bit fancy, a little bit exciting. Now, one of the key reasons why we're doing this to our beef now is that it makes it so that the beef is more granule and disperses more evenly inside of the chili, so we don't have giant clumps of it. Of course, if you want giant clumps, I mean, you could just toss everything all in at once and just kind of let it cook down, and you're probably going to be left with something pretty good. So that always works too, but I've always liked doing this pre-cooking the beef method. It's a little bit more work, but it's not too bad, doesn't take too long, and in the grand scheme of things, it's no big deal. But the results are pretty good, so can't argue with the results. I guess at the end of the day, that's the only thing that really matters, is how good it tastes at the end. Now that our beef is mostly brown, I'm going to turn down the temperature on the stove to a much lower value for the rest of this project. Now I'm going to be adding the rest of my ingredients, so I'm going to add in my diced tomatoes, as well as my crushed tomatoes, then add in my different beans, my red and black beans. I like having 2 different types of beans. I really think that gives it more depth, but I know some purists don't even use beans at all in their chili, and whatever you want to do. I'm not entirely sure what the classification is, but a hearty bowl of something, maybe we should use that. Not entirely sure. But once we have all of our ingredients added, we can simply give it a little bit of a stir. And because we've reduced the temperature of the stove top, it's not going to do anything too exciting, so we can go about our day. Now, I'm one of those fans of cooking your chili for a long period of time at low heat. So I'm actually going to let this cook for a couple hours before doing any of my seasoning. Because I find that doing the seasoning after it kind of cooks down works a little bit better than seasoning it too early. But there is arguments made for doing it both ways, but whatever. Also point out too that when you're selecting tomatoes for your crushed and diced tomatoes, like the cans of the stuff, try to get the better ones, because I think they have a little bit better flavor generally, and that usually transfers over into the end product of your chili. Anyway, enough of this. So I got 1 tablespoon of garlic powder, and I got a teaspoon of chili powder. I'm also going to be adding a little bit of this Reaper spice here. Now, this stuff is really spicy. It's the type of stuff that you add one drop to your pot and it acts as a food preservative because other people won't be willing to eat it. And I'm using garlic powder because I didn't have any nice garlic that I could have minced up and tossed in. So if you got nice garlic, throw that in as well, rather than use the powdered stuff. But the powdered stuff works good in a pinch. And once we have that all mixed in there, we're just going to let it cook for a few more hours. Of course, when it comes to spicing your chili, it's best to do a little bit at a time, mix it in, get out your spoon, try it, see how it is. If it's not spicy enough, add something spicy. If you think it needs something, add a little bit of it, see what it does. It's just one of those things that you kind of work towards perfection, edging towards the end goal, which is fantastic. It's just a great way of cooking, rather than having to have everything precisely measured out and formulated, because there's always variance in ingredients. You know, even 2 cans of tomatoes, I mean, they won't be the exact same, so being able to fine tune your recipe is definitely a good way to get a better end product. And the bread that I was having with this chili at the start, that was just a potato bread that I made earlier, just something to accompany it. Now, at my household, what we usually like to do with our chili is serve it with sour cream and cheddar cheese, but I wasn't feeling that ambitious at the hour of eating my chili, because chili's usually better in the next day. It's one of those meals that gets better after you leave it in the fridge overnight after making it, and the next day for lunch, it's amazing. So that's always something to keep in mind, especially with a nice big pot of chili, because it's going to last you a couple days. So let me know in the comments below how you make your chili, if you have any secret techniques to it. I know my mother, she likes to add mushrooms to it, and I'm not the biggest fan. That to me is more pasta sauce than anything, so whatever. Maybe I'm just picky, who knows. Anyway, so like, comment, and subscribe, and have yourself a lovely day and stay awesome.